Welcome to Circuit de Ledenon on the 10th of August 2026, where the conditions are dry, with air at 26 degrees and track temperature at 29. Molat starts from pole, with Marcu alongside on the front row, then Williams and Joyner on row 2. Turkey lines up 5th with Arsenijevic 6th, Garrett 7th with Case 8th, and Russell 9th alongside Van Ekkelen in 10th. Behind them, Cav starts 11th with Lindqvist 12th, Hunt is 13th with Maddox 14th, and the final row is Bastida in 15th alongside Fouillet in 16th.
What stands out straight away is the quality at the front here, because the top 3 on the grid are also the top 3 in this week's standings. Molat has been untouchable at Ledenon so far, 4 poles and 4 wins. But Jarno Marcu has been right on his gearbox with back-to-back second places. And Jake Williams from 3rd already knows how to beat both of them. This really does feel like a front-row fight before they've even reached turn 1.
A lot to look forward to in this race, Aria, as we wait for the red lights now. Marc gets the launch and brings the field away at the start. Joyner wastes no time, moving past Williams to take 3rd. Further back, Maddox gets through Hunt for 13th. Marcu and Williams are wheel to wheel in the fight for 3rd. Cav is on the move as well, taking 8th away from Garrett. Garrett keeps losing places in this opening phase, with Lindqvist now passed for 11th. Cav completes another one and clears Russell for 8th. This scrap is spilling across the group now, with Case just ahead, while Cav and Russell keep trading space behind. Cav is straight into another contest, this time side by side with Van Ekkelen for 9th. Lindqvist still cannot shake Garrett either. Those two remain alongside in the fight for 11th. The leaders are tightly stacked together, Molat still heading a 4-car train at the front, with no breathing room at all.
Joyner's close enough to force precision here. If Molat misses an apex by inches, that whole group could concertina immediately.
Hunt and Maddox are back alongside each other again over 13th. And the Russell-Cav battle flares up yet again, still side by side over 8th. Cav wins that exchange once more and gets back through Russell for 8th. At the very front, Molat is still being chased hard by Joyner. Arsenijevic comes out on top and takes 5th away from Turkey. Twist here, Joyner drops away from the front order. The note is that he may have started on qualifying fuel and had to pit to fill up. Even with all that going on, the fight for second is still alive. Marcu just ahead of Williams. Garrett is back in the thick of it now, side by side with Lindqvist over 10th. And Garrett finally gets one back, repassing Lindqvist for 10th. Up front it is still tightly bunched. Mollett leading the way with Marcu tucked in behind, and Williams close enough to keep that lead fight alive.
This is where patience matters most. Mollett looks composed, but with only a few tenths in hand, one tiny wobble brings both of them into play.
That pressure is spilling forward into a three-car train around 4th, with Arsenijevic ahead of Turkey and Case. Marcu is still trying to keep Williams behind in the battle for second, and Williams is right there. Back to that fight for 7th. Cav still just ahead of Russell, with nothing settled between them. Mollett continues to control it at the front, but Marcu is staying close enough to keep the leader honest. Williams has not gone away here, still glued to Marcu in that scrap for second. Here comes the fight for 4th. Arsenijevic and Turkey are running side by side. They are still alongside one another. This battle between Arsenijevic and Turkey really starting to build. Case is back under Turkey again for 5th, almost close enough to have a look. And that is a huge drop for Arsenijevic, tumbling from 4th all the way down to 11th in one brutal swing. Van Ekelen makes it stick on Lindqvist and takes 9th. Marcu adds fastest lap to the pressure with a 1:25.707. Foyer runs wide there and loses a lot of momentum, dropping away from Bastida while Joyner closes right in. Case now has Cav all over the back of him in the fight for 5th, separated by only a few tenths. Fayette's race takes another hit there, heading for a tow back to the pits. And the pressure stays on for Marcu, still just ahead of Williams in the battle for 3rd. Mollett is trying to keep Marcu behind here, with second place covered by only a few tenths. Huge swing at the front as Foyer drops away from 1st and falls to 9th. Just behind them, Case has Cav tucked right underneath the rear wing in the fight over 5th. Further back, Garrett is right in the middle of a crowded fight around 7th, with Russell, Van Ekelen and Lindqvist all involved. Up front it is still relentless, Mollett leading Marcu by only a handful of tenths as that fight tightens again. We skip ahead from lap 8 to lap 9. The order is largely unchanged. At the front, Mollett leads Marcu by about 0.6 seconds. Current top 5, P1 Mollett, P2 Marcu, P3 Williams, P4 Turkey, P5 Case. Back to that top 5 train, and Turkey still has Case and Cav stacked up right behind. The lead fight is still right on the limit, with Marcu continuing to shadow Mollett at the front. Turkey remains ahead in 4th, but Case is close enough to keep this duel very much alive. Russell goes wheel to wheel with Van Ekelen in the battle for 8th. Mollett still hangs on out front, but Marcu is closer than ever, and the pressure for the lead keeps building. Case just has Cav covered for 5th, and this has the feel of a fight that is only getting started. Russell is right alongside Van Ekelen now in that scrap for 8th, and the pressure is building. That battle has pulled Lindqvist right into it as well, so Van Ekelen, Russell and Lindqvist are now bunched together around 8th. Marcu lays down the fastest lap of the race, a 1:25.490, as he keeps the leader firmly in sight. Cav completes the move and takes 5th away from Case after that sustained pressure. Up front it is still right on a knife edge, with Mollett only narrowly ahead of Marcu for the lead. Lindqvist has been reeling Russell in over the last few laps, and now that gap is right down to almost nothing. We skip ahead from lap 11 to lap 12. The order is largely unchanged. At the front, Mollett leads Marcu by about 0.2s. Current top 5, P1 Mollett, P2 Marcu, P3 Williams, P4 Turkey, P5 Cav. And once more the leaders are nose to tail. Mollett still hanging on with Marcu pressing hard in 2nd. Quick order check. Mollett leads Marcu and Williams, then Turkey, Cav, Case, Garrett and Van Ekelen. Turkey is still trying to fend Cav off in that fight for fourth, and there is very little between them. White flag is out for Malat, so the race leader has 1 lap left to settle this. Into the closing moments, Malat still leads, but Marcu remains right there and refuses to let this go. Case is still just ahead of Garrett in that fight for 6th, with barely a car length between them as they run to the line. Malat seals it from pole and signs off with fastest lap as well, a complete drive at the front. Marcu comes through to secure 2nd, finishing this one strongly after edging clear of Williams late on. Williams follows him home in 3rd, rounding out the podium after that late pressure from Marcu eased away. Here comes the next cluster across the stripe, 4th through 7th together, and Cav is the big mover in that group, up 7 places. Another tight pack arrives next from 8th through 11th, with Arseniovic the notable story there after losing 5 spots from the grid. Hunt completes the run in 12th. Maddox takes 13th, having managed to break away from Bastida over the closing laps. Bastida is next to cross in 14th, after that gap to Maddox opened up late in the race. Joyner rounds out the classified finishers in 15th, ending the day well down on where he started. That is the race complete, and it has been a lively one from start to finish.
Malat was absolutely clinical, Marc. Pole, fastest car when it mattered, and 14 laps led from lights to flag. But Jarno Marcu made him earn it and finished just 7/10 back for a 2nd straight runner-up spot. Jake Williams had the pace to stay in that fight from 3rd, but 7 incidents probably cost him any real shot. The drive of the race might be Denny's Cav though, up from 11th to 4th without a single incident, while Ian Joyner was the big loser, dropping from 4th on the grid to 15th.